Where's Doomsday going? Where's Secret Wars going? Where is the MCU going as a whole? These are really only questions that the Russo brothers can answer for us. But since we gotta wait to get the actual answers, I figured to make a video kind of going over what I think could happen or what could not happen. And this video just comes out and I just end up looking dumb. But willing to roll those dice. So right now I want to go over some theories, some facts, and just some ideas about how things could play out in Doomsday and Secret Wars. So, easy thing to go over first is that we already know the confirmed cast. And I got it pulled up right here, so, in no particular order. We have Sam, his new Falcon, Steve, Thor, Loki, Shuri, M'Baku, Namor, Spider-Man, seems to be Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Ant-Man, the new Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Magneto, Mystique, Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, Franklin, Deadpool, maybe. Doctor Strange is also a maybe. Wolverine, maybe. And obviously, the big man himself, Doom. So, something I want to immediately go over is possible deaths for Doomsday and also why those deaths may or may not be. So, very quick one to get out of the way is Thanos, which is, they've already teased a little bit that they're gonna show the iconic image of like the Thanos spine rip. Just an easy way to like fully clarify, hey, Doom is this level of power. You literally see him take out the second to previous last big baddie. Just an easy one, right? Second one, and this is a big one as far as like my theories go, is Loki. I'm actually very, very, very confident that Loki could die, and I think it's gonna happen in Doomsday. And whether it's done so that Doom can take his powers, or it's just for like a major death to happen, who knows? But I'm extremely confident of it for a couple different reasons. I mean, one of them mainly being just that it feels like Loki's story has come full circle. So, like, it feels like he would be the perfect character to kill off because, like, his stories, we've seen it, like, and it was amazing. Like, so his death would hit incredibly hard. But there's also another option for Loki that I'll get to in a little bit later. Third one is Tobey Spider-Man. Now, there's already been some like rumors and like supposed leaks that have come out that already kind of implies that this is going to happen, and it honestly makes the most sense. People thought he was going to die in No Way Home as well. So like it would kind of just make sense. Like, regardless, I don't see any scenario where like we get to the end of Secret Wars and Toby's still alive. Like, I just don't see that happening, like, at all. So, whether it's like the leaks say in the beginning of the movie, apparently, with his universe being erased where he dies, or if it's the events of the movie where we see him get killed by Doom or something like that, I'm very, very confident with like this is the last time we're going to see Tobey Spider-Man. Fourth one is Blade. Now, obviously, Blade has not been announced for this movie, nor have I even really heard rumors that he's going to be in it. However, for something that I'm going to predict later, I think it would make the most sense for the Blade that we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm pretty sure is also the Blade from the Blade movies. It makes sense to actually kill him off in Doomsday if he were to be in here, you know. If not, I guess it could happen in Secret Wars. Fifth is M'Baku. Now, this would obviously hit very well because M'Baku's a very, very, very liked and, well, I'd say honestly beloved character at this point. He's been amazing in pretty much any showing he's had in the MCU, and it would just very much hit hard for Shuri's character it would add another, like, because I imagine they want to add up the death toll for, Doomsday. M'Baku is just a very good character to choose for that. Like, he's just very effective for that specifically, and it would emotionally hit, right. So yeah, he's solid choice. Um, Red Guardian. Now, like, because of a prediction I'm gonna have later, this could totally not end up happening, but it seems fully possible that, like, for the sake of Elena's character, or just for like the new Avengers in general, that Red Guardian dying just makes an insane amount of sense, and people like his character enough that, like, it will mean something. He had, like, pretty much his best scene in the MCU so far in Thunderbolts, that moment that he had with Yelena. So it would obviously hit incredibly hard for him to, like, be one of the people who die in Doomsday. Uh, Next is Charles. This obviously, being Patrick Stewart, Charles. I mean, he's just died a ton of times, so I think it's just fully possible he might die in Doomsday as well. Not saying that I want him to necessarily, just think it's kind of just par for the course for his character. I mean, like, we've seen him one time in the MCU so far, and he died again. So it's just that's just a random one to throw out, but it's fully possible. Next is Magneto. Literally same reason as Charles, only, like, I'm less confident about that one. But with, spoiler alert, the rumors that Scarlet Witch will be in Doomsday, like, it's fully possible, like, something could happen with her and him where she ends up killing him for whichever reason, or maybe Doom kills him. Who knows? But it's within the realm of possibility. Next is Mystique. For well, simply for the reason of, I think we can all kind of gather that in Secret Wars there will very clearly be a massive lineup of characters, to fight against Doom, or, like, however the final, like, battle ends up going. There'll be a massive panning shot of, like, all these, like, like, all, like, the big, the characters, like Avengers, X-Men, Defenders, Fantastic Four, and others. So for that specifically, you wouldn't necessarily. This is no disrespect, by the way, because I do like Mystique's character a lot. Um, you wouldn't really need her for that, because, like, you don't need her there to represent for the X-Men. You know, like, she's more of a Brotherhood of Mutants figure than an X-Men necessarily. So, like, like, she's not an OG X-Men is basically what I'm saying. So, like, she could fully die in Doomsday, and it'd be a way to add to the death toll, and, you don't need her for, like, that big shot that they're likely going to do in Secret Wars. You just don't. Next is Deadpool, which obviously this would be, hinging on the idea of, is it, like, are we going to see that scene with him and Thor from Deadpool and Wolverine in Doomsday? That could be in Doomsday. It could be in Secret Wars. Maybe it'll end up being somehow in a future project, which would be silly. But no. So, like, a big reason why I'm 50-50 on if this takes place in Doomsday or Secret Wars is because, like, a lot of reasons, like Thor crying over Deadpool, like, he obviously does not know him yet, so, like, it brings the question, like Deadpool was asking in the movie, why is Thor crying? Like, if he doesn't know Deadpool, why is he crying that Deadpool was dying? That just rhymed too. But, like, yeah, so it brings up the question, like, okay, so are they gonna, like, get along really well in Doomsday, and then, in Secret Wars that's when he dies, or, like, is this just in Doomsday, and Thor's crying for a different reason? It begs the question. Now, obviously, people would say, "Oh, but Thor in Doomsday is gonna have short hair. So what sense would it make? Like, because, like, the Thor in that scene with Deadpool had long hair. So, like, where's the correlation? My counter to that is that they just, and to be very clear, like I'm shooting this on April 18th, 2022. Uh, yeah, so like it's very, very like likely that this is the case. At CinemaCon, they literally showed that, like in the trailer that they showed, that Steve meets up with Thor again, and he has long hair. So like we already saw the Captain America. Sorry, Steve Rogers. The Steve Rogers teaser where they show like, oh, he still has the same haircut that he had in Avengers Endgame. But then they show the trailer at CinemaCon and he's got long hair now. So like the question is like, are different events in this movie taking place at different times? Like it begs the question, which is why there's a part of me that's a little like, maybe that scene somehow is in Doomsday. Who knows? Next is Ghost from the new Avengers. Like, yeah, so like it's just an easy one because like it's not like people are insanely attached to her. Like enough people like her, but like it's still fully possible that they're gonna kill her in Doomsday to add to the death toll, and because her death is gonna mean something to the new Avengers. But like it's not someone that we're gonna like insanely mourn the loss of. Despite how well the actress plays the character, is like, like that's not something, that's not a death we're gonna lose sleep over, right? Next is Yelena. This would be a character that many people would lose sleep over if she dies in Doomsday and or Secret Wars. Like, I don't know why I said and or, like Doomsday or Secret Wars. It's just there's so many things that can happen with Yelena dying. Like her death could mirror Black Widow's death in Endgame. Like it could be a massive moment for Sentry. And I heard on the rumor mill that Yelena is gonna play like a big part in Doomsday, and I question what that's supposed to mean because she's likely not going to be the leader because you have like 8 other characters that can fill that role, and it makes more sense. And she's not, like, she's literally she's unironically the weakest member of her group, so she's not going to play a big role in terms of like power scaling or anything. So is that big role literally just going to be like she dies and then that like causes Sentry to come back, or like the Void to come back, something like that. The last one that I'm going to talk about is Ant-Man. Now, this is mainly just because people were kind of expecting him to die in Ant-Man 3, myself partially included, and it's very clear that they're building up to the Young Avengers, and Cassie Lang will likely be a part of that, and it'll definitely hit harder where, just like with Sam losing Cap, just like with Peter losing Tony, here, like now you have Cassie losing her dad, and likely something that will be repeated later on with other characters. So yeah, that settles it for all the deaths I'm going to go over. Now, bigger question, why is Robert Downey Jr. Doom? This has been talked about ad nauseum. The Russo brothers have consistently talked about how, they would not do this if there were not a reason for it. And one of the things, or at least one of the things on like the conspiracy mill about like why he does look like Tony, is that it's the idea that it's Tony's corpse. It's Doom in Tony's corpse. So I believe it was stated somewhere that that scene in Fantastic Four, like where Doom shows up, is going to be a scene in Doomsday. And the thing about that scene is that like we obviously don't see his face, but maybe that's for a bigger reason than just, oh, we don't want to, you already know it's RDJ, but we don't want to spoil it for you yet. Maybe it's because showing his face would spoil a big part of the plot of why he's like, why it's Tony. And that would be that perhaps Doom from the Fantastic Four's universe is literally like using Tony's corpse as a host. And so when Franklin is like touching his face, he's probably healing his face. Like he's healing his whole body. And so like we obviously don't see it in that scene, but like Franklin is literally looking at the corpse of Tony Stark. So yeah, that's another reason that that could be. It's like there's several different ways that they could go about like explaining why is it Tony, you know, but that's like a big that's a big one to like go off of. Now, another big question that that question stems off of is what becomes of Franklin. And I thoroughly believe, and yes, this is due to the comics, but also due to what they've already teased, that Franklin will unironically, at parts of, you know, these two movies, Doomsday and Secret Wars, he will end up siding with Doom. Now, what I mean by that is obviously I'm not saying like, oh, he's going to turn on his like family, you know, he's not going to turn on the Fantastic Four. What I mean by that is that I think Doom and Franklin will share scenes with each other, and those scenes will show like, you know, the parental type relationship that they have, you know, which they've already implied because and this was talked about in another YouTuber's video that literally their first interaction with each other that we see at the end of Fantastic Four is a very like it's almost like a tender moment between the two. Like just off their first meeting, already like Franklin isn't like crying, he's not like, you know, calling for his mom or anything. He's not attacking Doom. Like he's literally like holding his face. You know, it's a very like intimate, like tender moment, as if to imply that literally off the bat, Doom and Franklin are going to have a very like almost like a fatherly son relationship type deal, which leads me to believe that in the events of Doomsday and Secret Wars, we will actually see Franklin like come with Doom in his journey to godhood. And based off of certain concept art that I've seen, that seems more and more implied every single day. Now, I'm going to briefly go over some like possible cameos, obviously, and again, also have been talked about ad nauseum, but that's why I'm going to run through it. And I've got them pulled up right here, so thankfully I can like speed run these. The Celestials, the Eternals, Black Knight, Blade, Moon Knight, Man-Thing, Ghost Rider, the Inhumans, Jane, Silver Surfer, Miles and/or Gwen, the Sony villains, the Living Tribunal, these are the two big ones here, Molecule Man, and the Beyonder. Now that last one is probably the most obvious one, but it's also the biggest one. Now, to briefly go over a couple of those, the Inhumans, I get why people think that's not very likely, but the thing that makes me consider that they might be in Secret Wars specifically is that Star Fox showed up at the end of Eternals, right? Star Fox is Thanos' brother, and we've already established that Thanos will likely, like, they will likely do the Doom Thanos spine rip scene. And something about that makes me very confident that at the bare minimum, Star Fox will end up appearing. Now, who knows Harry Styles' schedule? Who knows if he's like even trying to do any of this? Literally, who knows? But for the sake of the story and for the sake of the potential of it, I have to take the Eternals into consideration that they might be there. You know, the ones that are left. And Black Knight, same reason, you know. But when I bring up Blade, you're going to say, oh, but you said that Blade might die in Doomsday. Well, yeah, because I think that if Blade shows up in Secret Wars, it's either going to be two of them, or it will be one, which I believe might be Mahershala Ali. that's kind of wishful thinking considering how the Blade movie and all that has gone behind the scenes. Very wishful thinking. I'm aware. However, I think it's fully possible because in Secret Wars they're gonna want to go for the big moments, the big shocking moments that everyone's gonna like want to talk about over and over and over again. What like there's very few things that'll be bigger than Mahershala Ali's Blade being in Secret Wars. Very few things will get talked about more because think about it. Deadpool and Wolverine came out. What was one of like the top three most talked about things? Blade being in there. Obviously, it was the whole ensemble. Like Channing Tatum's Gambit also being in there is up there. But like one of the top things, Blade. So I'm fairly confident that if Mahershala Ali is like ever gonna reappear as Blade in the MCU, it'll be in Secret Wars. Now, Gwen and Miles showing up, and yes, I do think it would be the Spider-Verse versions of them. This is totally dependent on whatever happens in Beyond the Spider-Verse. It's fully dependent on that. So fingers crossed that happens. The Sony villains, this would literally just be because their whole verse is done, and so like this would be their way of this would be their way of being like, yeah, so like these guys aren't gonna really continue their stories, but hey, you get to see them in Secret Wars, and because like it's all these other universes, and we've already like shown Venom kind of interact with MCU Spider-Man, so like we've already clarified that hey, this is like a full multiverse, and like these guys are just in their own universe. So it really wouldn't hurt to just have them all in Secret Wars, whether they all end up literally just being there to die or not. Anyway, the biggest ones here are Molecule Man and Beyonder. Now, big thing, Disney, please, please, please let there's a number of people who can play Beyonder. Most people are saying Henry Cavill, and like that's the preferred one. That'd be awesome. But please, please, please let Glenn Howerton play Molecule Man. Please. He is literally the perfect like sociopathic, like egomaniacal character, like player. Like that's literally his shtick. Like everything he does as Dennis in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, that is exactly what you'd want to see in Molecule Man. Literally couldn't get better than that. Please. Please. Now, let me go over some potential heavy hitters. And this is like, we're going to enter like the power scaling side of this thing. Because obviously we're getting into Secret Wars, so like there needs to be heavy hitters. So first one is Superior Iron Man. This was supposed to happen in Doctor Strange 2. Please let it happen in Secret Wars, and please, please, please let it be Tom Cruise, Superior Iron Man. Please. Please. Next is Captain America, or Steve Rogers. Now, the Steve Rogers I'm talking about is one that would hold both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. Now, I know what you're going to say, but he doesn't have Mjolnir. Here's the thing, though. Two things, actually. So, one, I always theorized that perhaps Cap waited until later in his life to return Thor's hammer to the events of Thor: The Dark World back in 2013, and that he kept the hammer with him. It would just be an easy way to say like, okay, he's still holding the hammer, he's just going to return it later. Another thing, if Jane Foster were to somehow, like say if she were to return from Valhalla, whether just for the battle in Secret Wars, or as like basically them saying like, hey, the mighty Thor is back, but like, you know, if she ever like goes back to being Jane Foster and gives up being the mighty Thor, she goes right back to Valhalla, and like she's just, that's the end of her. Now, if she were to return, obviously in Secret Wars, then there's a possibility that, you know, she gets, you know, the you know, the Mjolnir bits and everything. And in that case, you would not only have her, but you'd also have like Cap wielding Mjolnir that way as well. Now, I'm gonna be super honest. I don't remember everything about like the ending of Thor: Love and Thunder, so I genuinely don't even remember what happened to Mjolnir in that movie. I genuinely do not remember. Like, not even trying to be funny, I don't remember. But, anywho, the next one is Rune King Thor. Now, this is actually a major story beat. So, as a lot of you who are comic book nerds like myself know, is that for this to happen, there's the whole thing with Loki and Loki's head. Now, the MCU has actually done decapitation before. They, you know, they had Thanos get decapitated in Endgame, and they found their own like PG-ish way to do it. Imagine when if Loki gets killed in Doomsday by Doom, if he gets killed by beheading. And as well as that, in Doomsday, if Thor gets blinded by Doom. And so going into Secret Wars, you now have a blind Thor and a beheaded Loki. And so now you can give Thor like a bullshit like power up any way you'd want to, like it's fine. And basically have it so that he has like literally have him just pull a full Kratos and Mimir, and like he literally just has Loki's head like by his side, like, and that way you'd be able to technically be like, oh well, Loki's technically not dead, but he's kind of like out of out of the story ish, like he's kind of just there whenever Thor's there. But this way you also have the brothers with each other, like at least until Chris Hemsworth maybe gets a fifth movie, and like that's like the end of Thor there. So that's another option. Rune King Thor is a solid one. And also, if the Celestials are in Secret Wars, you can literally have Rune King Thor, like as soon as he gets the big power up, like he just goes around like one tapping Celestials, and that'll just be like a solid, yeah, he's on a different level of power now. So the next one is World Breaker Hulk. Now, I know because of everything they did with Hulk in Thor Ragnarok, I hate that movie. I hate Thor Ragnarok with a passion. However, though, there is a way to lead back into that story. And it actually starts with Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, Brand New Day has only shown that it's going to have Bruce Banner in it. What I would prefer for this to all to work is that Bruce literally never transforms throughout the entire movie in Brand New Day. Like, literally only have it be Bruce Banner in there. Then, if he's there in Doomsday, you can have him just be there as Smart Hulk, or just have him appear as Bruce Banner still. And in Secret Wars, which will likely have She-Hulk in it, as well as Deadpool, or another version of Deadpool, if he does die in Doomsday, sorry. It would be so perfect for Smart Hulk to be taken out of action, or like severely injured, or for it to still be Bruce and he just literally can't, for whatever reason, just doesn't transform. And then She-Hulk, like his family, his cousin, nearly is like about to die. And when that happens, he finally goes back into his angry Hulk form. But not only that, he's the angriest he's ever been, and he goes world breaker. And this works as well because we also have Sentry in the mix. So there's so much that can be done from that point going forward. Another one is Third Eye Strange, like Third Eye Doctor Strange. Like that's an obvious one, no brainer. Another one is Spider-Man with the symbiote. Now, obviously he doesn't have the symbiote yet, but we have not seen Brand New Day yet. Like I said, I'm filming this on April 18th. Brand New Day has not come out yet. What I see in my head is if the symbiote is at all involved in that movie, it's either going to be at the absolute end or in an end credit scene where Spider-Man is in his apartment and we see in the camera we see behind him is the symbiote that Eddie Brock left in the end credit scene of No Way Home, right? And then we obviously don't see Spider-Man until Secret Wars. And let's say RDJ's Doom is about to attack Spider-Man. And then we just see Spider-Man's hand reach out and the symbiote covers it and he blocks the attack. And just like that, you've revealed that the symbiote has already gotten to Peter. And then literally just make his next movie, just make the entire movie surrounded around him having the symbiote. And that way you can literally lead into, kind of like what they did with, PS5 Spider-Man 2, which was like all the symbiote stuff with Miles there. But only here, obviously, Peter doesn't know Miles, but he does know Uncle Aaron. And they've already established this, and they've already established in Across the Spider-Verse that Uncle Aaron has already become the Prowler. So they've literally already set this up to happen. Now, this next one is possible, but we're reaching territory. Phoenix Jean Grey. Obviously, this would take place in. Technically, it could take place in Doomsday because we know the X-Men are going to be there. But I'm betting it would take place in Secret Wars. Whether it's Phoenix Jean or perhaps even White Phoenix Jean, who knows? But I'm willing to hinge my bets that that's a possibility. Next one is Void Sentry. And not the Void Sentry that we saw in Thunderbolts. It's a fully formed Void Sentry, like in the comics. Like it's like a fully upgraded, fully realized live action Void Sentry. This would obviously mainly only exist in Secret Wars. Maybe we'd see it one time afterwards, but yeah. This next one, very likely not going to happen. It's the Maker. We're very likely not going to see him, but wanted to bring him up. Binary Captain Marvel. We've already seen the other Captain Marvel, like Monica Rambeau's mother. We've already seen her in the binary outfit in the end credit scene of the Marvels, so that could be build up to that Brie Larson's Captain Marvel will then go into her binary form. Scarlet Witch, that's just an easy one. She's likely going to be involved in potentially both movies. And the last one is Infinity Ultron. Now, I'm going to save my thoughts on him for literally the end of this. Now, just to end off the video, within the next 6 or so minutes, I'm going to briefly go into theories, and then I'm just going to, at the end, talk about what I think will happen after Secret Wars. Now, first theory is going into this is that Franklin, Doctor Strange, and Scarlet Witch will all join Doom. They all have certain reasons to-ish. I already went over Franklin. With Strange, that's the really interesting one. Because remembering back in Infinity War, when Strange saw that there was one scenario where they would be victorious, remember that he's talking to Iron Man in that scene. And to be very clear, I did not come up with this theory, but like there are things that I've gone back at and looked at where that just strengthen the theory more. So that's why I'm bringing it up. It's not my theory though. Um, he's literally talking to Iron Man in that scene, and it's very, very likely possible that he saw beyond what would happen with Thanos, and he saw that the only way for the universe to be fully saved is for Doom to win. So it's very like that could very likely be the reason why it was so important for Tony to live, not just to be a sacrifice in Endgame, but for him to also essentially become Doctor Doom's host, and for that to be the key to Doctor Doom's victory, however it takes place. Scarlet Witch, I've already heard on the rumor mill that, like there'll be some stuff with like her and Magneto, and Magneto will likely be working with like all the heroes, and Scarlet Witch could be working with Doom. I think it's a decent theory. To strengthen all of this, we also have the fact of, well, not fact. I don't want to quote this as fact. There is concept art out there, whether it's official or not, I cannot confirm, but there's concept art, like actual concept art of what looks like God Emperor Doom because he's wearing the white cloak in a throne room filled with people, and by his side he has Franklin, and there's also a woman standing next to them as well. I don't remember exactly who that was meant to be, but to his right side is none other than Doctor Strange, which makes me believe that it's a full possibility that Doctor Strange will actually side with Doom. Whether it takes place in Doomsday or Secret Wars, it's very possible he will side with Doom. The next theory is the logo theory. This has already been talked about on the internet. I'll keep it short. That there's an ongoing theme with the logos of the Avengers movies where, the way, like, in pretty much all the logos look exactly the same except for Infinity War and for Secret Wars. And obviously, as we already know, in Avengers, in Age of Ultron, and in Endgame, the heroes were victorious. In Infinity War, they were not. The logo for Doomsday is the same as, the first two and Endgame. So it implies that in Doomsday, they will have some sort of victory against Doom, but in Secret Wars, Doom will be victorious. So these are kind of like theories that are going hand in hand with each other. Like one relies on the other, but I think it's a pretty good theory. The next one is the incursions. Now it's a simple one. It's basically just the idea that Doom is going after all the individuals who caused incursions in the Marvel universe. Now this would be Steve Rogers, Stephen Strange, Scarlet Witch, Monica Rambeau, Wade Wilson, Deadpool, and Loki. And we've already been confirmed that pretty much all of those people are going to be in Doomsday and likely also Secret Wars. So this is a pretty strong theory. It's very, very likely, and I don't think it's any coincidence that like the first bit of like AI fake trailers that we were seeing for the Steve Rogers. I hope I didn't say Steve Trevor in one of those times I said Steve, but Steve Rogers. Like in one of those like fake AI concept trailers, we saw Doom come to Steve's house. So it could be possible that Doom is actually targeting them one by one. Now, another theory is that they'll literally just they'll have Jonathan Majors come back in one of these movies just for Kang to literally kill the entire Council of Kangs. And if that happens, like, I don't know what to think about that. I legitimately don't know. So, yeah, that's there. Another theory is something that I initially had about Doomsday in the first place, which is the idea of the four horsemen. I thought going into Doomsday that Doom was going to have four individuals as like basically his small army. I thought that that would be Galactus, Beta Ray Bill, Hercules, and I believe Magneto. And that could be true, could be not true, in terms of like Magneto, but like it's likely going to end up being like Scarlet Witch. That theory is likely like dead in the water, especially since like Thor might get a Thor 5, so like Hercules will likely be a part of that and not be involved in either of these movies. But that was just my initial theory. It is what it is. The next is Lady Death. Now, this one's fairly important. So, Lady Death obviously made her first appearance in the MCU in Agatha All Along. Now that we've been introduced to her, I think it's fully possible that if Deadpool dies in Doomsday, we will then be going through like different universes in Secret Wars, and we will come across a universe that has another Deadpool, and we will see that Deadpool interact with not only Thanos, but also Lady Death. It's fully possible, and yes, I do think the entire scene would be played up for comedy, as it honestly should be, because it's pretty silly. But yeah, that's just what could happen. The next is Doom's armor. Now, if you look very closely to what they've already shown us of Doom's armor, you will literally see Captain Marvel's like insignia. You see Thor's hammer. You see like little ring looking things that kind of look like, you know, the 10 rings, which implies Shang-Chi, who we already know is in Doomsday. And little hints that like his armor is also Iron Man based. And this could imply that Doom is literally using all of the character's abilities to strengthen his armor. Because as we already know, in the comics, Doom's armor is ridiculously overpowered. So this is likely how they'll do it in the movies. He'll use like different abilities from and different items from different people to strengthen his armor. The next is just a bunch of characters that will likely end up appearing in Secret Wars. King Thanos, Hydra Captain America, Maestro Hulk, zombie versions of the characters, Sinister Strange, maybe, Sentinels, and the Beyonders. Those are all just like maybe potential like could show up in Secret Wars. The final theory is about the gods. Now, we've already been introduced to several god characters, like godly characters in the MCU. The Panther gods of Wakanda, like we haven't been introduced to the main Panther god of Wakanda yet, so we could see that in Secret Wars. Because there's a major, I won't spoil it for people who don't read the comics, but there is a major moment that happens in the comics regarding Doom and the Panther god of Wakanda. And if Doom is actually meant to win in Secret Wars, that is where we will see that scene. And another is Khonshu. Like, yeah, it would be nice to see him for the first time since Moon Knight. Like, what was that, 2021? Like, it would just be very nice to get more than just like a singular god in Secret Wars. The last thing I will talk about for this is what I think will follow Secret Wars. Now, I think they're going to do Battle World, and I think that Battle World will remain the way it is by the time that Secret Wars is done. Whether Doom wins or loses, I think Battle World will remain, and that is how we will get like more characters crossing over into the sacred timeline. Read the original like Secret Wars comics. Like, for anyone who's aware about like the Miles Morales stuff and like how all of that like is kind of like originated and stuff, reread the Secret Wars comic books because it gets intense. But yeah, I think after Secret Wars, we're going to start focusing more on not just the mutants, you know, and that side of things. And it seems like we're going to get like a whole new like X-Men, like a whole new cast of like X-Men in the Sacred Timeline. But also, I think we're going to focus more on obviously Spider-Man since he's getting like more movies, but also Miles. Now, I do think that the main thing that we're building up to in Spider-Man's new trilogy is going to be Ned as the Hobgoblin, but Miles is a very important part. They've already confirmed Miles exists in the Sacred Timeline because we've met Uncle Aaron and he said, he had a nephew and everything. Like, so I think that's the main point that we're going to go after next. Next is the Young Avengers. That's an obvious one. Everyone knows that they're going to eventually get to that, and that could legitimately be how they end the MCU. How they just like cold turkey final project ends up being like the Young Avengers. Like that's fully a possibility. And the last thing I'll go over is who would the final villain be of the MCU? If not Thanos, if not Doom, if not Beyonder, Molecule Man, like any of these guys, who would it be? And that is, I believe, potentially Infinity Ultron. If we do not see, especially if we don't see him in either Doomsday or Secret Wars, it's fully possible that they will save him to be the very final boss villain of the MCU, period. However that goes is however that goes, but that's all I had to say. I think a good amount of us are looking forward to Doomsday and Secret Wars. I just wanted to talk about it and also put something out because I haven't put up a video in like almost a year. But I needed something that was going to motivate me to do so, and this was definitely it. Yeah, hopefully I'll put out more content pretty soon. There's some things coming up I'm interested in, like Supergirl and everything. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Later.